Sure, I'm Jay Blanton, and I'm the spokesman for the university. So we've got a unit of about 30 people overall in strategic communications and PR, and so we're the folks that handle all the media requests that come in, and also have a team of folks who write and promote the campus and put out UK Now every day and put out news releases, several a day. So we're like our own sort of internal newsroom for the campus. Well, I think last year we saw that, over the last few years, we've had high demand for our residence halls, and we've had increasing numbers of students too. And both of those, we would submit are good things. We want to have more students, because more students means more graduates, and that's good for Kentucky and good for the workforce, and that's something we're very interested in. President Capilouto and our board are very interested in. We also want more students to be able to live on campus if they want to. We know that's good for students. We've done some research over the years, and we know that when students live on campus, at least for that first year, their GPAs are higher, they do better in school, they connect more quickly with resources, they tend to form more connections with people on campus, foster social connections, all those good things. So we want more people to live on campus. And we know we have we have really good residence halls. I was here, you all weren't here, when we overhauled or began to overhaul the residence hall system in 2011. And prior to that time, our residence halls were nearly 50 years old on average. They were becoming increasingly hard to maintain. They weren't really prepared and ready for modern students. I mean, you couldn't plug in multiple items in don't come with your mobile phone and your iPad and your refrigerator, because that's going to cause a problem. Wi-Fi was really spotty. And they were coming to the point where it was really costly to repair them. And we saw that students were telling us they didn't like housing and dining. So President Capilouto had a creative idea to be able to overhaul that campus housing in a pretty quick period of time. And so over a period of 4 or 5 years, we built 14 residence halls. There's still a few that we maintain ourselves. But I think you've seen that the market has spoken. About 85% of our first-year students live on campus, and we are one of the few campuses, at least in the SEC, and I think increasingly in the country, that don't mandate that students live on campus. I think there's only 4 schools in the SEC that don't have a first-year mandatory live-on requirement for students. But even with that, 85 to 90% of our students live on campus, which tells us that students like the market's speaking, and the students like what they're seeing. So we have, in the last couple of years, as you know, probably better than most students, we've had more and more students want to live in our residence hall. So we've looked at different ways to accommodate more and more students. When we built the residence halls, we also built all these community gathering spaces and kind of classroom spaces, and we built some of those spaces with flexibility to be able to modify them. So like the community rooms could be turned into residence hall rooms. We did that for a couple of years. This year, as we saw that demand for this coming year, we decided we'd try something a little different. How can we create more access to more students to live on campus, maybe even create different price points for students, make it even more affordable and accessible, and that's where we came up with the idea for this, what we call Try It, where you, with a 2-bedroom suite, maybe have bunks in the one bed and single in the other bed, provide some incentives and alleviate some of the costs there. With those incentives and both some cost reductions to create more access and still allow more students to live on campus. So long answer to a short question, but that's what we tried this coming year. We anticipate, we know, I'm going to try and dump my coffee again, that we'll be doing it in the coming, for the 24-25 academic year, that we will try it again. We expect it to be about the same percentage, about a 30% or so of the rooms on campus this year are Try It rooms. We expect about the same percentage this coming year. Expect about the same size first-year class. We had almost 6,500 according to those preliminary numbers we had in September. We think the class will be about the same this coming year. So you'll see something I think pretty comparable next year to what you see this year in terms of that. I lived in the old Holmes Hall and the old Keeneland Hall, so I lived on campus for 2 years. So the Try It is 100 times better than where I live. Not to be one of these old guys that says you all don't know it, but I don't think we had. I'm not even sure we had a window unit in my residence hall, so I can't remember though. Keeneland was a little different because that was an upper class. That was a returning student kind of residence hall, but there is no comparison no comparison to the residence halls we had leading up to 2011 and what we've had since then. That's not to say things are perfect. I'm not suggesting that, but we have really good residence halls. They help, I think, support learning. I think they help support community. And look, at the end of the day, numbers are what the numbers are. I mean, we had wait lists for residence halls. So, you know, at the end of the day, the marketplace isn't perfect, but the market does speak, and I think it's speaking volumes. I mean, students want to live in these residence halls. Doesn't mean we can't improve, doesn't mean we can't expand. In fact, the Board of Trustees is meeting next week. They'll be considering a plan for us to go to the legislature and get authorization to start building here in the near future new residence halls to expand. But we feel good about what we're offering, and most importantly, we feel good about what we're offering in terms of how it supports students and their learning. And if you look, we think housing's been an important part of what's happened with graduation on this campus. I mean, graduation rates in roughly a decade have increased by 10 percentage points. That's huge. I know it doesn't sound huge to people out there, but that's a huge increase. That's a great trajectory. Now, a lot of that's about great students doing good things, but a lot of it's about really good faculty and staff supporting them, infrastructure, classrooms, and residence halls that support their learning. So we feel good about that. I mean, we think the experience has largely been a good one. I know you're always going to see a range of folks, good and bad, but I think the feedback we've received has mostly been good. Students wanted to be able to live on campus. This provided them that option. Students and families both wanted different price points. This gives that option, you know, for a lower priced option. I think some students have found that if you had a group of friends, maybe that provided an option to have those friends living together where they might have had to make a choice otherwise before. You know, I think we all know students aren't in their rooms all the time at the same time, so I don't think that's been a bad thing. That, you know, these residence halls are also built, as you alluded to a second ago, with study spaces and communal spaces, so they're using those too. So it would be disingenuous to say it's been 100%, but we think that the feedback has been such that we feel good about it, and felt good about it going into next year. And if you look at where, I don't have the exact numbers, but housing applications are strong, which tells us, and people know really early, obviously, that we're going to use this triad option. So that indicates to us that it's been an option that's been well received generally. You know, I think we communicate, even for this current year we're in, my sense is we communicated a lot with families and students. Obviously, it happened a little later in the cycle than it's happening this year, but there were several communications. There were a number of social media posts, lots of direct communication. So I think we communicated appropriately to folks about that. So I don't know that I would agree with the idea that there should have been surprises about it. May have been folks who wanted different kinds of options, and then they could make choices too. But I do think we communicated quite a bit about it. I would say we started earlier. I think we did hear, as you know, you've heard from some students and families that we came with that triad option maybe a little later than they wanted. So I think we've started earlier this year telling folks, hey, this is going to be one of the options to accommodate more students. And so I think what you see is deadline pressure works, not only for classroom assignments, but for other things in life. So people apply earlier, and so that's a good thing. They get into that process earlier. You know, we start with returning students, then we go to first-year students. So I think that would be the major change. I think we've started earlier in that process, telling them that this is going to be an option for a portion of our rooms. I think we've tried to do it fairly. We tried to, again, it came down to, we want as many students to live on campus as want to. We think it's good for them. Clearly, students want to live on campus, so this provided a way to do that. And it also created different price points. Again, I know I'm being repetitive, but it gave people different sort of pricing options, which I think creates more access and affordability. So we feel good about it. I think we've tried to communicate as clearly for this year. You know, we don't know yet exactly on things like incentives for next year, but we've tried to communicate that clearly. And then if and when there has been confusion, go back and work with students. I think we're not perfect, certainly, but I think we have a pretty good reputation for working with folks and trying to figure things out. So we've tried to do that. So we're not going to be perfect though, but where things happen, we try to work with students and families to make it right.
Absolutely.
We're always looking to improve. I do think we heard folks in terms, you asked that question about communication. I think we did hear folks about making sure everyone has an opportunity to know as early as possible about that. I think it's been clear. The fact that we're sitting here talking about it now is clear that we've communicated about it really early. So I think that's the major thing, and that's that we've tried to move forward with those communications earlier and even more frequently. I think it's a little bit more than a year, but I think we feel comfortable with this approach and think it's been a good one. We'll see long term what that looks like. We evaluate every year what we're doing and how we're doing it, because obviously we've made changes over the years in terms of how we try to accommodate more and more students. But certainly we continue to try it for this coming year based on what we're seeing so far this year. So we'll again evaluate going forward, and then obviously over the next 5 years we hope to be in a position that we've got even more capacity, and we'll evaluate going forward. But we feel good about the try-it option right now. Housing is something we have really focused on in the last several years at this university. I would say more than a lot of places we focused on it. We really built these residence halls with the idea that students and families were telling us they wanted better options, and they wanted places where they could feel safe and secure and supported. And I think clearly if you look at the number of students who want to live on this campus and then even want to return and do it a second year, that says we're being successful. Can always do better, can always do more. But I think this is also a place that continually looks at how it can do better and do more in terms of how we support students. But housing has been an integral part of how we've improved the student experience and how we've improved student success. And it's going to continue to be.